Welcome to the Select Board meeting for Monday, February 5th. Call to order at 7:04 p.m. I'm going to come back to number one because it's probably the one that needs the most time. So let's get through the rest of it.
I would agree.
And then circle back. Review a non-union police department personnel compensation schedule.
Thank you for holding off on that and coming back to it for this meeting. I just wanted to go through and just double check all the stuff, and I have no concerns with it.
No concerns here. And then in terms of placement, did we discuss just following the same process?
Yeah, I think there was a process in place for the last one. If they
How
fell
everybody
between
did,
one
yeah,
and
it was
whatever,
through the
they went
same-
to it and we just followed the same process. It was systematic. I don't think we made any exceptions throughout any of the general
No,
government,
generally
fire
it's the
department,
same.
any of the non-bargaining. We didn't make any exceptions. We just did one process.
Follow the process, yeah.
Yeah.
So just apply the same.
Yeah, that's what I would.
Consistency and fairness
Yeah.
to everybody.
And then when are we making it effective?
For everybody else, we made it was back to July 1, correct? I mean, currently, we only have 2 part-timers that fall on this table, so it's not a huge, and we should have the funding for it anyways, even with the change in the retroactive. And that puts everybody on the same scale, same timeline.
Consistent.
Yeah.
I'm fine with that.
Yeah. Guess that I'd try to be equitable across the board, and
Yep.
that's what we've done for everybody else.
You're looking for a motion?
Yes, please.
I will make a motion that we approve the non-unit police department staff compensation FY24 as presented, effective July 1, 2023.
I will second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Thank you. Discussion regarding 2024 Almost Anything Goes residential bulky waste. You all ready?
We're ready for it. I was reading your if you're okay, I'll just jump right in.
Yeah, please.
I was reading your memo. So the Almost Anything Goes flyers are the cookie cutter. It's the same thing every year. The only difference is the caveat that they were offering to offer this other service,
Correct.
pay for service, or
Right.
fee for service.
Which is like what you used to do. We had like a Saturday, or we would have other hours
Couple.
down at Public Works.
Yeah.
Where we would take those items for a fee. We're unable to currently do that.
Right, and so this would allow them to still get rid of their stuff. Who would, and I apologize, I didn't get to go through the link and read all of the other, if there was other information on that.
Yep.
But just, is it a simple form where the resident reaches out to the vendor themselves and schedules it, or no?
So what we would do is, currently the solid waste district hosts this within the county.
Excuse me one second. Are you talking about the solid waste district piece, or are you talking about other bulky waste that they won't pick up?
The other clean sweep, the other stuff that they won't pick up, that they'll do secondarily.
Okay.
Right, yeah.
Sorry.
And
thought
so,
we were talking
and so
about solid
his,
waste.
and his memo was more about, do we want to add this secondary piece, this clean sweep for the items that can't be collected through the regular Almost Anything Goes? Do we want to include that information in the paperwork that goes out for the Almost Anything Goes, right?
And host, right?
And the question is host.
Yeah,
So to be clear, the
Sorry.
Almost Anything Goes program has always come with, we can accept this curbside and we cannot accept
Right.
this. For all of these items, please bring it to Public Works. Here's the fee schedule, and we'll offer these additional hours for you to bring them down there. That was always your program.
right,
We no longer can do that portion.
correct.
Right.
So for the last year, we've had to encourage residents to take those items to other transfer stations and transport them to those communities. What the solid waste district is offering to do, they already do this program in May and October throughout the county. They're offering to put one of those collection sites in Erving, so it would provide a local opportunity where residents can take their items in Erving to a location, to the chairman's point, we would host. So it would be one of the town properties that we'd identify. One place that we're thinking about is the senior center parking lot, because it provides that loop, sort of pull in and pull back through.
Yep.
The vendors would be all organized by the district, so we would not have to organize the vendors. We may provide a little staff support to help the district do this, but they handle all the logistics, so we would just be there that day. And then they would handle having all of the materials removed from our property. There is a fee associated with it, and the fee schedule was on that link.
Yep.
But it's no real difference from the current practice of going to other, community transfer stations and engaging in their collection programs. We didn't offer an October collection in the past, so it would be an additional opportunity later in the year, 6 months out, for folks if they identify more items that they are looking to part with.
Just for clarification, when you say there's a fee associated, that's for the person dropping off the goods, or a fee to this would be a cost to the town that we have in budget? No.
No.
Other
So-
than if
so,
we provided some support?
Bringing a white good like a refrigerator. The refrigerator would have to be processed and there's a fee associated. Somebody was bringing a mattress. There's a collection for that, there's a fee.
Yep. Which they have to do if they bring it to another location. This is just,
No, I understand that, I just
Yeah.
wanted,
got it,
people are watching and
Right.
concerned about
yeah.
where we are budget-wise and what we're spending money on. And just a
Understood.
point of clarification, that
Yep.
this won't be an additional cost to the town budget beyond the regular anything goes.
Correct.
And the solid waste district handles this as A, part of what we pay in, right? And B, part of what they collect for fees to cover it. Like
Sure.
that's all managed by them and already included anything that we do in fees we already pay. That wouldn't go up, wouldn't change anything.
Erving residents can already participate in this program in past years.
Right.
So it's nothing new in that sense, it's
Just a
being
new
relocated
location.
to this town.
Yeah.
Got it. Would it be a relocate or an added locate?
At this point, I believe the proposal is to relocate a site that has not been as highly used as it maybe once was. And part of the proposal was not only the change that has happened in Erving for our own ability to collect, but maybe the potential that maybe there's a greater need in another community. Maybe staging in Erving would provide a different opportunity for Franklin County residents as well. So even though we'd be providing this to our residents, and obviously we would hope
It's
that
open
they
to
would get
anybody.
a benefit, our neighbors in Gill and Northfield and in Millers Falls, and Franklin County is also welcome.
Yeah.
And the district keeps track of who's coming through from what towns. So we have a report at the end of how many, account of how many reports of Erving residents coming through that day.
I think they closed one of the sites a year or two ago as well. One of them discontinued.
Just because lack of use.
I don't remember the reason, but I feel like one of them, because there was
Yeah.
three, I think, and now there's only two. And in terms of lift, other than a little bit of support along the way, is there a support expected the days of?
So each town does it a little bit differently. Some towns do provide a couple staff members just to be on hand and to help, direct residents where they
Check-ins
need to
and-
go. But it wouldn't be a heavy lift.
I'm fine with adding the information about that and setting up a date through solid waste and
Doing hosting?
host it. Yeah.
Yeah, I was thinking where about here, I mean,
That does make
Probably
sense
the
with
most
the loop.
seems-
the
Yeah.
most, logical.
This
From
was
a-
the only other one with a setup like this, but in the off chance that the materials haven't been picked up by Monday morning, I wouldn't want them to be in the way.
Right.
I wouldn't want them to be anybody's way, but if they were in the very, very back row over here, I think we'd be okay Monday morning getting them out of here.
Yeah.
It may be problematic for the school,
Yes.
but in theory, they should all be gone by Sunday at the latest, so it should not be a problem.
The site has worked well in the past when they've had the drive-through flu clinics at the onset of the pandemic, and
Yeah.
Correct.
Mm.
it seemed to have worked well.
Okay,
Easy access off 63 and everything too, so.
right, right.
Relative to that, the electronics, the e-waste, I don't know, we talked a little bit during budget about e-waste, and that's part of what is taken during the clean sweep, right? They take e-waste.
Yeah, I was
They would
looking,
take e-waste.
Right,
Yep.
so is that something we want to move toward that instead of what we're doing now? Because it's still there, whether, or at least something to think about. Not saying we have to put it out on this flyer, but at some point. 'Cause right
You're
now
talking
it's
about-
drop off and it's a cost.
right, you're talking about stopping that practice and just utilizing this as the town of Irving's practice for disposal of e-waste.
I mean, it's everything else
I-
just about, so
Yeah,
that we may have used to take, right? So I feel like it's that and more. I don't know, I'm just asking the question, right? It's another cost that we have today that we would be providing a facility for it that would remove, A, the cost and the potential that we're just receiving every TV in the county. And some of those concerns. I don't know, just wanted to put it out there while we're talking about it, whether we put that in this or decide to do that, say, summer and implement it officially
was gonna
then
say,
for
I-
October and May of next year.
yeah, I was gonna say, I think we get this one going,
So-
and they can, drop those off e-waste if they do, if they don't. But before we get too far into the next year, we relook at what we are taking and do we want to cease that program altogether and utilize this on an annual basis. I think doing them in tandem this year makes sense just because it was,
Short time.
yeah.
Yeah, understood. Is there, what else is there? Is that it? Or we don't do fluorescents, right? So this is the
No.
only thing that's left right now.
Yeah, e-waste
than
is the only
leaves.
one that we
Yeah,
take
leaves
and
and
then
brush.
leaves.
Leaves
Yeah.
and brush, yeah, okay.
So we're accepting their offer, and I'm updating the guidance.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay?
Would you like a motion to say so? No?
I don't
Okay.
think we need. Excellent, thank you very much. Sorry about that.
I shouldn't laugh. I don't know how many times I've done that.
Review and potential appointment of historical commission vacancy, letter of interest, Kelly Light.
Chair, I'll be recusing myself from this topic of conversation, please.
Understood? So noted.
That 2016?
A letter of interest for a vacancy we have, well, one of, a couple.
Yeah. I am always happy to see letters of interest come in. Thank
So
you,
am I, as am I,
Kelly Loyne, for your letter of interest. I have no concerns.
same.
All right, move it right along. I make a motion to appoint Kelly Loyne as a member of the Conservation Commission.
I mean, the
That should read
historical,
Historical
right?
Commission. My
Thank
apologies
you.
on that.
We
Look
did
at
say-
the typo, so.
Yes, it is. Thank you for writing it, and I read it as it was written. A motion to appoint Kelly Loyne as a member of the Historical Commission, effective February 5th, 2024, with a term ending June 30th, 2026.
Second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, welcome.
I read that 3 times and
See
still
Betsy
didn't
to
catch
get
it
sworn in,
until I
please.
said it out
At
I
some
was
loud.
just saying, I'm like, no,
Yep.
that's a typo.
Moving on to discussion regarding town planner position preliminary screening committee.
Did you?
I
You're
will
rejoining?
rejoin at this time.
7:18. Did you happen to look, so, screening committee, did you happen to look back at what we did when we hired the current planner?
It's 5.
Was 5, not 7?
The chief was 7.
Okay. I just remember a lot of people at that table, because
My
I was one of them
position was
back
7.
then for the planner, so I just, no, you're
Yeah.
probably right. I just,
Yeah.
the old town hall, everything felt bigger, smaller room, I don't know.
But it does pose the question, though, when we hired for the current position, it was an assistant planner, not a department head.
Right, it was a different level.
It was a different level, and typically for department heads like you and for chief, we've been going with 7.
You
I'm
have
just
the
throwing that
discretion
out
whatever
there.
you want.
I mean,
I think
sometimes
it's dependent on what it was.
I've sat on
and-
both, and it can be very cumbersome with 7.
Oh, yeah, I'm not recommending it, I
yeah.
was just curious.
I would recommend the 5. I was just throwing it out there. Just historically, with the upper administrative level, the top department heads, we've done 7, but I've sat on those in several different occurrences, and it's cumbersome with that many people. 5, I think, is a better number. So if people are questioning why we're now going with 5, I would recommend that just based on historical practice of trying to do it with 7. It can be difficult.
I also think they're all important, but some of the most critical, when you think about
Yeah.
what is your critical infrastructure and critical, leadership
Yep.
in the group, sometimes that may lend to a different approach.
Yeah.
I'm fine with 5.
Yep. And I don't-
Any opinions or concerns with the makeup recommended?
Nope. You would, do you need us to
Create it?
create it, but not only that, but the appointment for which department head?
So you either could vote to make it today and then wait to do the appointments, or you can wait and do them all at once. If I know that the direction you want to move in, I can begin to notify the community and department heads of the opportunities to serve and collect those letters of interest for your consideration.
I think just waiting and doing it all at once. If we're happy with content with the 5 members, we just start doing the groundwork to look
Okay.
at community members and department heads, and
Okay.
3 of us individually can think about who's chomping at the
We're-
bit. Who's
Okay.
chomping at the bit to
Who's
get on
eager
that
say
one?
yes or no?
Yeah.
Understood. And then, if there's department heads that,
Are
we have
interested in it.
liaison and we
Yeah.
have a strong feeling for, we can always talk to them ourselves, but
Yeah.
let them put in their letters of interest or note their interest to
Yeah.
Brian, and we can get a list of them and then go through and pick one.
Okay. All right.
Because I assume we don't have one we all want right now. We'd rather hear who would like to be.
Yeah.
See who comes forward,
Sure.
for that, for the community members. I have a hunch, that I know who'll come forward for the town administrator.
Sneaking suspicion. I think you're right on that one. All right.
There's going to be an over-under at this table. No.
Okay.
Okay,
Great. I'll get that word out. Thank you.
great. Thank you. So you set an app date, okay.
Correct.
So what are you thinking for interest? Are you thinking like on the 19th? Well, like maybe you'll collect them by the 16th or something, give a week and a half?
And you're gonna meet on the 20th currently?
Yep.
So the goal will be to have something by the 16th for you,
Likely
so
a
the
point.
20th.
Okay.
All right.
Right, 15th, because the 19th is a holiday, right?
Yes.
16th for due,
Oh,
And then we meet the 20th.
19th, yes, holiday, 20th we meet.
got it.
Yes.
Yeah,
So
that
you'll
was a
have them
change
over
because
the
it was
weekend to
originally going to be
review.
22. The
It
22nd,
was,
we moved it
yeah,
backwards.
so you have set the date, and that's fine for the application date, but for us deciding and having interest from everyone, probably the Friday before,
Right.
so that we can
Okay.
get it together.
Sounds
Or
good.
Thursday if you want more time to put together,
Okay.
whatever works for you.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, it's a quick letter to let us know that they're interested, so.
Yep.
I think that's a reasonable timeframe.
Okay.
Okay? Discussion regarding the surveying services for Care Drive right-of-way and subdivision.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, I feel at this time I should recuse myself from this conversation because of my employment's affiliation with the subdivision.
Understood. 7:23.
So in the time since your last meeting with the Senior Housing Committee, they've had several, at least 2 additional meetings with RDI to go over the feedback, to address some of the concerns. In your packet is a proposed revised layout for how Care Drive could be amended, the extension of Care Drive, and how the proposed structures could be settled on the property to create further separation from the existing uses between the library and the senior center, to create more green space. We also had a meeting with the public safety chiefs and the public works superintendents to get their feedback where we would need to have egress, where we would need to have fire lanes, where we would need to have potentially a pump station, or any of the infrastructure. So this updated conceptual layout is reflective of all of those conversations.
So I did have a question related to that. Has there been, so I did attend that one.
Yep.
Has there been one since then, or was that the last one?
There was one more.
And did they address, I know there were some of the concerns, because I couldn't see it on this, on the color print, and maybe I'm just missing it on the, but there were some concerns from Chief Wonka related to access roads to be able to do aerial lifts if needed so that they can fight any structure fire
So
adequately.
to that question,
Yep.
if you look at the structure,
Oh, I think I
more
see it now.
on the left-hand side,
Yeah, that's the one they was concerned with.
all the parking originally was proposed to be up against the structures.
They flipped it.
All the
That's right.
parking's been pushed out and away. Pushing it away also provides the development of a second access road that takes you down to the proposed cul-de-sac.
Mm-hmm.
So there's 2 access points where in the initial conceptual drawing there was only 1. So yes, there was a result of that fire, and that would be a dedicated fire lane with some handicap accessible spaces close to the proximity. So we don't lose accessibility, but we just push the remaining parking. It also
Yeah.
provided a couple other places for some green space.
Yeah. The only thing it didn't do was continue the gravel access drive around the, what I call the backside of the.
That is correct.
And I think that was just topography as well.
Right.
The inability to do it, but.
Right. They're trying to preserve also some of that forested land
Right.
to
Yeah.
keep it undisturbed.
I mean, by and large, what I'm looking at addresses 90%, 95% of what was brought up that meeting.
To your point, you made a reference to the shaded, so page 2 of that conceptual land layout includes 2 sort of light blue shaded squares. That is the approximate proposed boundary lines of what a subdivision could look like for the 2 parcels that are sought, as well as that orange shaded space. That would be the proposed boundary lines for a parcel for the pump station. So at the point that the town is ready to proceed with a conceptual layout of a proposed subdivision, we could use this conceptual drawing with our surveyor to come up with proposed meets and bounds and written descriptions. You can see that as part of this, they're trying to maximize the retention of town. I mean, it's all going to remain town land, but the undedicated town land is, we're trying to maximize that. So in total, this is proposing to use just over 4 acres between the 2 parcels. And the rest of that land is all preserved for future town use. Or not, however the voters decide.
Maybe you heard, I'm just curious, any reason we didn't pull the the southerly parcel closer to the library rather than having such a large buffer versus the other side? We don't have that, to leave more room kind of in the geography
It's a
of
great
the site
question.
where it's a little more flat topography.
It's a great
And we have a
question.
very large buffer there.
You talking about here, just dropping it down closer?
Yeah,
Pull it-
between
pulling
like
it
the
into
solar
the-
panels in the library and the housing, there's a, in comparison, the buffer's
Right.
2 to 3 times larger than it is to the parking lot on the other side, between that building and this, senior center housing, senior center parking buffer. And in turn, on the backside at the cul-de-sac, we end up with, less property that is not part of this development.
I can certainly.
And I'm
ask
not
them.
going to say we would, obviously, because that's going to be the parcel, you're not going to do anything now in that buffer if that's the buffered area.
So
But I don't know if there's a reason or,
I don't want
dynamics
to.
or.
I don't want to speculate, but I believe there was a conversation similar to that. Is that those are multi-generational, and so creating that buffer, you might have families in there, and you could have children, and so creating that space sort of out of the front of the building for that natural lawn, natural area made more sense to sort of separate, and also give a buffer.
I can ask for a more definitive response if that'd be helpful.
Yeah, I mean, the scale, if it was printed, I could probably tell better. I
Right.
can't
Yeah.
hear. It looks, in comparison, it looks very, actually, you know what? I can tell from
I know
that.
that on
Well-
the senior center side, even though it doesn't look like there's much separation, there was less separation before.
Yeah,
actually
quite a bit
marked.
was added in.
And the building has been shifted back an additional 25 feet. It's allowed for different access in the front for transportation, public transportation to pull in and maneuver in that area. They also created more green space and separation between the senior center parcel and an opportunity to create some storage areas for tenant use.
Real roughly, it kind of looks like if we look at the developed, maybe on the first one, the developed extent area, the dashed line on the workforce side, to kind of the red line, if you will, I would say or even to the parking lot is probably close to 100+ feet based on that 40-foot marker from the side of the workforce to the side of Care Drive, or roughly. There's a 40-foot little call out there. If you see it about 1.5 inches above your finger, there's a little call out.
Yeah, right here.
Over here on the right of the building, above, just up right
Oh,
there.
okay.
So that
Yep.
little black call out. So I'm thinking we're north of 100 feet more even to the area, from kind of that, even the development area to the parking lot edge, or actually it's not even, it's existing, it's the panels. It's probably north of 100. And I'm not saying that a buffer's not good, but I just don't know if, we can ask the question anyway. I don't know if there's a value in maybe bringing that a little further and opening up more in the back where the cul-de-sac is.
One more request that was in the RFP was to try to preserve more of the mature tree canopy. So I don't know how that led to one decision, because obviously
Yeah.
there'll be tree removal in whatever you do
Sure.
in terms of that location, but I know that the developer was trying to balance that request. And I'm sure that was part of their calculation.
So in looking at, so a little change like the change you're talking about would still be in what the proposed amended layout and parcel breakup would be. So if we were to move forward with engaging, which is the next item or part of this item, to do meets and bounds for breaking up these parcels, the change you're talking about is within those meets and bounds, within that shaded, that blue shaded or green shaded, whatever one you want to call it. I think it's the next one. Oh no, yours.
I'm on
Just-
the second one.
Yeah,
I know what you're talking about. Yep.
yeah. Within that layout, you're talking about
Yeah,
bringing
my
it.
colors are different.
Yeah,
but
you're- yeah, I don't know
I
what-
have more layers than you. That's weird.
Yeah, I don't know why. Maybe
That is odd.
yeah,
Whatever. It's
We're
a
looking
screen
at,
thing.
but you're talking about dropping this down and over and closer, and putting more
Yeah.
space in the back and giving more of a buffer from the Care Drive.
Or even moving that parcel line further east-ish, southeast,
Okay.
to allow more of the full parcel to be available. Because that's, if you look at that, the outer, the south and west sides of that are where the elevations become more, topography becomes more challenging on those parcels.
Yeah.
So anything that frees up a little more kind of where that parking area is,
Yeah.
probably allows that parcel to be more developable without as much investment in, slope and
Move
things like
everything
that.
down here. Leave this undeveloped. Develop more of that.
That's what I was getting
Flip
at.
where they decided to keep the greenery.
Yeah,
per
and,
se.
and I'm not saying that you want to go through all the work of like twisting that a little more, but if you turn that housing a little bit further as you bring it closer to the solar panels, that's the dead space behind the library and into the ravine. It's not
Right.
close to anything, it's just the ravine. So it's maybe a fair amount of work to how much that may help or not. So I don't know if it's worth it, but it was more of a question.
One thing to keep in mind, I know RDI did mention at the meeting that I was at, is that ultimately this was one of their, I don't want to say their final revision, but at some point, if we want to engage larger changes, that they would then submit a cost estimate for time and material and additional surveying to figure out if that's feasible, because they're not willing, they're happy with their plan and they think it's workable. And if we, on our end, if we want to continue to make additional changes that would require altering engineering plans, that there would be a fee associated with that, if I'm remembering that correctly.
They would need help covering those costs.
Yeah.
What is the yellow line? Is that a
Down the middle?
topo boundary? The yellow topo line, is the
talking-
bolded one, is that
I
just
wanna-
a 50-foot call out or a
You
100-foot
talking
call out?
about this one here?
Yeah, and then there's another one, you'll see it down the bottom left
Yeah, it
where
comes
there's the
here.
next ring.
I see what you're saying. I don't see that legend.
I don't
I don't
either.
either. It probably is like an every 100 or every 50-foot call out.
It is following the
topo.
contours, so it's got to be part of the
Yeah,
topo.
okay.
But that's a great question. I can ask them that as well.
It's all right. Just curiosity.
I know they tried to capture some footpaths on there and some other stuff, so there's maybe some extra lines that are making this a little busier than it needs to probably need to be.
Well, the reason I asked is if you look just almost under the workforce housing is another one of those topo lines.
Yeah,
and
right
just
here.
to get a sense of how that topo is through there. Was just curiosity. When you talk about moving it, that's things get complicated.
Right. But happy to ask them.
Yeah,
So-
I don't know how much value that adds or how much, there's some point you're not attached to the cul-de-sac on the exit.
Right.
It all gets more complicated, so I'm not
Right.
sure, that makes sense, but.
This also provides, in terms of the right-of-way, it provides a similar cul-de-sac to what we had originally on paper had for Care Drive. It does provide a wider layout, sort of between the two properties coming off of the current paved end to Care Drive, and part of that rationale is to provide a place for public transit to pull to the side, so FRTA would have a safe sort of pull in to pick individuals up or drop them off, and then pull back out into traffic. And highway is weighted on that. It provides us space to have sidewalks if we choose to, and appropriate grass belt for the planting of trees and things of that nature. So we try to be as comprehensive with the right-of-way layout needs to allow you all or future decision makers to have enough space to do what they need to do in the right-of-way.
So personally, while I understand what you're requesting or what you're commenting on, I'm also not as invested on that change. If it were to happen, I don't think it's a question not worth asking. I think it's absolutely a question worth asking. And RDI has been very receptive. Every comment and question,
Sure,
they've taken it down, and as we've seen, they've had
I have a feeling
10
they have a
different
quick
iterations.
answer that says yes or no.
yeah.
Like it was an iteration we didn't maybe show, and
Right.
we can move that easily, or there's a lot to it and no.
Right.
So I don't assume it's a difficult question to.
But are you
to get an answer
proposing that we not move on the engagement of the surveying because your question then moves what the meets and bounds would be?
The proposal price wouldn't change, but we could hold off from heading out in case you need to make a further revision to the concept.
Okay, so we could vote to engage and then just tell them, stand down for another week or so.
Until we need to confirm a few things if that's the layout to do,
Right.
Right.
because it's a layout. It's
And they've
just-
been pretty responsive, and I would
Yeah.
say, I know, our next meeting is a budget meeting, but we've done it before where
Yeah.
one item, we got a response back, give us 10 minutes before the meeting, and,
When we get the response, just send it, and I mean, if it's pretty clearly no, then we won't carry an item, and we'll just move forward.
Okay.
If that
fair-
makes sense.
yeah, that makes sense.
And then if it is worth discussing, if an alteration
You give
makes
it
sense,
10,
we'll put
15
it, we'll
minutes
put it
on
on the
a,
beginning.
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Does
yeah.
that work?
Yeah, I'm good with that.
But I still think, yes, we want to, I mean.
Yeah, I wouldn't want to slow
We
down
have
at least.
funding in a surveying line or some sort of line for this?
I would start with, unless you would prefer I take it from somewhere else, there's money remaining in the Senior Housing Committee line item that it's a special revenue source we've been working on for this project.
Okay.
So I would start there.
Makes sense to me. It's obviously some fluid number on bounds. There'll be a
Yeah,
few.
we don't,
Right.
we don't,
We don't know that.
And I'm assuming you would want them all bounded with
Oh,
markers.
please.
So you're looking at a base award of 10,000?
Yeah. Plus
Ta-
bounds
For
as
task
required.
1 and task 2.
Task
correct.
1 and task 2 plus the additional fee for $100 per bound provided,
Correct.
Yeah, as needed.
as needed.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that makes sense.
Make a motion that we engage Edward C. Muzinski for the surveying proposal on Care Drive for the housing project, Town of Irving, in the amount of $10,000 plus any additional fees needed for bounds at the cost of $100 per bound, and authorize Brian Smith to sign any and all required documents.
Second? All those in favor?
Aye.
So we'll pose that question, let them know we're going to do it, but we'll hold
Yep.
off till we have that answer and then go from there.
Perfect. Excellent. Thank you
I
very
would
much.
imagine they'll be pretty quick on their response.
Yeah, I would assume we'll probably get that answer and know if we need to wait this week.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Surplus equipment request, community planning. Are you
I will
rejoining?
rejoin at this time.
7:40?
And I noted that on the agenda, I only listed community planning, but rec was also in there.
I see
and
that, the-
Should have
the
added
tent.
that to the cover. Yep.
I know typically we carry these for 3. These are both items that are,
In disrepair and
they're in disrepair and they're not really anything of value. I mean, if we had something, if they said it was a $10,000 tent, but we're surplusing it and we're going to sell it, I would want to give a duly noted for all residents to know that we're doing that. These are $0 values. I don't know if we have the authority to do it all in one, but I would like to do that if we can.
would you say, I would assume the used chair is probably at its useful life.
Yeah.
Or so.
Yeah.
Okay, then, yeah. All right, we can. I
Okay.
didn't say we have to. Wait.
I'm going to make a motion that we deem the office chair from community planning as surplus. It can be offered for free to residents. If no takers, it'll be disposed of.
Is it in a condition to be offered? I guess that was kind of my question.
Yeah. Yeah. We can make it available. First come, first serve. Free.
Okay,
I will second that.
all those in favor?
Aye. And make a motion that we deem the tent from the Recreation Commission as surplus property and dispose of appropriately.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
All right, circling back to the top, review the proposed personnel policies and procedures manual draft.
So before we dive into it, I would just ask that this has come back in many, I think we're down to 2 points that haven't really
Well, we're
come.
close. We're very close.
We're very close. I think even we always strive for consensus and moving everything forward. And I know even if we all don't agree on something, I would like to get this moved and in place. It's been on the docket for a long time, with the understanding that this will be a fluid document, and if we have to come back to it in 6 months, 8 months, a year, and make modifications based on new information, new guidance, we can do so. So I don't want to wait for 100% agreement on every single thing. If the document is close, I'm willing to move it forward. So just putting that out there.
Fair. I would say if it's in, to make consensus isn't agreement necessarily, but
Yeah.
we can, I think if the things that are materially changing something and how we apply and maybe in a benefit or in a compensation or something else in here, benefits that we need to make sure those are right before we do it.
Yeah.
But if there's some other things that we may come back to because there's additional things to consider down the road, I agree with you. It's not something we can get to now. Although we have the bylaw and we haven't come back to that. And there were some recommendations on that. And I do feel like we should look at that once before we adopt this to make sure that there's nothing there that we need
That
to.
contradicts or
Any of the recommendations there don't affect what we're doing here. And I know they're meant to be complementary,
Right.
but there were things that made us pull it at the last minute. So,
The things that you pulled it over, and it's obviously your choice, but the things you pulled it over had nothing to do with conflicts in here. It was inconsistency in terminology.
Yeah, if I remember correctly, I believe the items we put in the bylaw were the ones that inherently should not be a part of the manual, and they are two distinct documents. It should sort of reference each other, but not, one doesn't behold the other one to anything.
it shouldn't, yeah.
Yeah,
No, I agree,
yeah.
I agree. They should complement but not overlap or anything.
Yeah. So I had mentioned that there was two. I believe it was the overtime section. We had a discussion on the use of time off, paid time off. Does that calculate for hours worked for the work week when calculating overtime for that pay week? So if somebody uses a vacation day or, there's, they use an extra personal day on a Tuesday and then there's overtime on a Saturday, do they get overtime? My stance was always that it should. I'll still stick with that, but I'm also, if it's decided by the majority of us that it should not be in there, I'm not gonna, kibosh any movement to get this advanced because of that.
I think the one, maybe before we dive into that, are we good with the meal break change? The clarifying language?
Yeah, that was the,
That was a material language change above
yeah.
that,
Yeah.
in the meal break period.
that was the addition of saying that they have
There's
the
a
opportunity
form.
and there's a form and they can revoke that at any time.
Does
Yep.
that capture what you all were looking for?
Yep.
I think so.
Yeah.
While I don't think, when you weren't here, when Jim and I discussed this, that we came to a decision on vacation sick personal specifically, I think we had, discussed it a bit. I think the one that maybe was more of concern on how do we administer or reconcile was the holiday. I think it was the one that became more of a, either we do or we don't on those ones, but on the holiday one, how does that work? That came to
How so?
discussion. If holiday hours count towards 40 for the purpose of calculating overtime, then if you, well, there was a couple scenarios that came up. One of them was if you work, it's a Monday holiday and you work Monday through Friday or Monday through Thursday, and you have to work that, right? So we'll use public safety, we'll use police. They have to work. They don't get the holidays off. They're still scheduled days. They just get paid the extra hours. They would get paid for 40 plus 8 of holiday and there would be 8 hours of overtime for the week.
So
There's
you're,
4 10s, 8 for the holiday, 8
okay,
hours for the week.
so there's a
overtime.
fundamental difference, I guess, and it's not captured in language. My thought was it's holiday that is not worked.
Well, and so this was some of the nuance.
Yeah,
then
so
if
that's
it's
the
Tuesday
nuance.
through Friday, you get the same exact pay as the person who actually had to work on the holiday. And that was one of the items that got brought to light was if I didn't have to work that Monday holiday, I still get the 8 hours. I work 40 later in the week, I still get 40 plus 8 of overtime for my net pay for the week. And so it's identical if you had to work it or didn't.
Yeah.
And I think that
I'm trying to figure out language on the fly right now that would alleviate that. Apart.
Well, I think you don't include them as one method. You don't include them in the overtime calculation, but then you also, I would think, pay time and a half for hours worked on a holiday, period.
Yeah, that makes sense to me. And I think if we do that, it allows us to at least move this forward, because I don't have any concerns with any of the other ones.
I think that was just a nuance of like, how
Yep.
do we work through it? And we didn't want to make a decision. We wanted
Nope.
to have you here to hear
Nope.
it and go through it.
I'm fine with not including holiday, but also saying that if you work the physical holiday of which you're getting the 8-hour holiday pay for, it's at a rate of time and a half.
Yes. So we would not include holiday as part of a calculation of
40 hours.
overtime.
Yeah,
But then also add a clause somewhere in here that says if you work hours on a recognized holiday,
those
you
hours
are
are,
paid those hours at time and a half.
Yes.
Doesn't matter what they are. Highway gets called in on holiday, has to work. They normally wouldn't work it. Those hours are time and a half, regardless of whether they get to 40
or not.
or not in the rest of the week.
But that's, just to be clear, that's more like a premium pay as opposed to true overtime.
Right, it would be saying those hours are paid time and a half. It's not saying they're overtime, it's saying they're paid at time and a half.
Yeah, we can
Hours
we can
worked on
label
a
it however we
holiday
want. We're
are
not.
paid at time and a half.
at the rate
It's
of
not
time
an
and a half.
overtime function. It's a
It
premium
happens to be
pay.
the same rate of pay, but it's not overtime.
Right, but this, I hear what you're saying, but this section is specifically talking about FLSA overtime.
And I said somewhere else, somewhere we can call out
We're gonna have
that
to.
holidays are paid at time and a half. Worked hours on holidays are paid at time and a
Right.
half.
Which,
Probably, and
Maybe in the holiday section.
yeah, in the holiday section.
And that's why I said it that way, is meaning that in here, we don't include.
We just strike holiday from there. And
We say time
Yeah.
off for, or holiday time will not be considered hours worked for the purpose of calculating overtime. Because I think your recommendation was to strike vacation, sick, personal,
right.
right? And keep those in the calculation?
Correct.
So really, the only thing there would be saying that holiday time is not considered or
Right.
calculated.
And then to your point, capturing, honoring the working of a holiday in the holiday section by calling out language that pays at a rate of time and a half.
Yes,
pulling
because I
it
think
from
of,
here.
Like, you get 8 hours of, we'll take highway, right? Let me pick somebody else who works 8s. I
Yeah.
don't know, whoever.
Mm-hmm.
Fireworks,
Fire.
8 hours Monday through Friday. They have the Monday holiday, they're gonna work 32 hours and get 8 hours of holiday pay. If they come in on overtime on Monday, they come in on Monday to work, it's not overtime. They haven't hit 40 calculated hours yet.
Correct.
So they won't get overtime, but we want to ensure holiday worked hours are paid time and a half,
Right.
separate
And we
from,
capture that in the holiday
or in
section.
addition to.
okay.
Does that make sense? I mean, from the things that you were identifying, and I think to the first part, or what we kind of glossed over, Jim and myself, any concerns with striking vacation, sick, and personal from being removed from I should say having those
Allowing
included
them.
in the calculation for overtime. I guess
Right.
that's the proposal, is to strike that and include them in the calculation.
Mhm.
Any
Correct.
concerns?
No.
Okay.
Okay, I'll make those changes.
I just want to jump down to holidays.
I was
where
just
that's
looking,
gonna go, and-
looking the same thing and
sure
see if
that
there's a
makes
way we
sense.
can amend language
Because I
tonight.
think there's something in there already or similar that was a little unclear, which drove that as well. I did wonder about some of the headings. I don't know if it was there's a reason or an intentional, or just never noticed it before. But page 5 of it, for example, applicability and administration. We have administration in caps for some bizarre reason, in table of contents the same way.
Probably a cut and paste that,
Yeah,
Yep.
and then like the welcome on page 4 is all caps, but I don't know if it's meant to be.
Nope.
So that's kind
I will
of,
fix all that formatting.
yeah, it's nothing major. Just kind of caught my eye as we were scrolling through it.
So holidays. There's what, 17? No. Yeah, 17.
Go back to page 14 as well.
There's reference back there?
No, compensatory time was another place.
Yeah, but we want to,
Oh,
yeah,
we wanted to jump to holidays to figure out the paid at time and a half.
the one that we
He's gonna
just
come back.
amended.
I just scroll right past it. Page 17, is that right?
17.
So the last line of that section in holidays was also maybe inconsistent. Scheduled employees required to work an unscheduled holiday will be paid at time and one half. I don't think schedule has anything to do with it. If you work holiday hours physically, then you're paid time and a half.
So in that last sentence, you're saying
If
it
we
should be
just said-
employees required to work?
Or
I would just say
employees who work
who work
a holiday.
A holiday.
hours on an observed holiday will be paid that one, time and 1/2 for those hours worked.
Of the base hourly rate, yeah, so just modifying that one line.
Yeah, because I don't think it's, to me, I'm not concerned if it's essential. If you had to come in and work it, you had to come in and work it.
Yeah, I think about, the
Regardless.
library's open and we're
Sure.
observing a holiday that, holiday falls on a Sunday and they happen to work and they don't close,
Right.
they get time and a half for coming in for whatever hours it is,
Right.
regardless of department, essential, non-essential.
Sure.
You work a holiday, you get paid.
And then, go ahead.
Employees required to work a holiday will be paid.
I don't,
Yep. And I don't think unscheduled doesn't belong in
Right.
there,
Yeah,
right?
you can
I
take
mean,
Exactly.
unscheduled out.
Just-
So employees required to work,
So strike essential,
holiday.
strike unscheduled.
yep.
And you're satisfied that that captures, I
I mean,
am.
I think in application it works.
Yeah,
I think it separates the holiday pay is an 8-hour
Yeah.
straight base hour rate.
and I,
And it's not related.
I
and
think
then
it
also
captures the-
rewards those working on a holiday.
yeah, I think it captures a concern like, oh, I work a holiday, I don't get any extra funds for it, and now you said it's not calculated towards my overtime, so I really lose out, and we're saying, we're still gonna give you time and a half for the holiday pay. So then it sort of,
Yeah, 'cause
it's
it
it's a
does-
it's a net zero, per
Right,
se.
or
Or
an
even
upside for
or an
having to come
upside.
in,
Yep.
right? And that's,
Yep.
that's, I think, the part that
Okay,
I want to make sure we covered is,
Yep.
if you have to come in,
time and
it
a half.
sucks if we're being frank. But
Yeah, nobody
let's-
wants to work a
let's-
holiday.
Let's make sure at least we're being decent about it.
Yep, okay. And then we have to go
So
back up. Comp time. So the concern was that it would require it may invoke additional cost if we're using overtime to fill somebody's day for comp time that they're putting in. Right, that was one of the concerns, that it was one of the unseen hidden costs of somebody takes compensatory time for overtime work, they don't get paid, we give a window that they use it, they go to use it, they're granted, but then it causes overtime for that day. And very simply, my experience with comp time, the way it was written from my previous employer was it can't. So you literally just put a stipulation on it. You have a window in which you can use the comp time, 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, whatever we already worked in there. And if you have not used it by that time, you're paid out. So there's no unfunded liability that rolls forever. You were going to pay them either the overtime 2 weeks ago when they worked it, or you're going to pay them at the end of the 30 days when it goes null and void anyway. So it's the exact same rate either way. And the approval of using that time cannot generate overtime. So they can work with the department head and say, I want to take a day off, and they say, we don't have staff to cover that without overtime, I'm denying that request.
Does the sentences at the end of 14, rolling over to page 15, address that concern?
Yep.
Yeah, exactly.
As you were saying it, in my brain, I'm going, I know we wrote that
Yeah,
somewhere.
we talked about
We
that
did.
because we didn't want to incur any new costs.
Right.
We have the one cost for the one overtime shift that was already created. We're willing to pay that. We have to pay that.
Correct.
Whether we pay it now or in 30 days if you fail to use your time that you've just earmarked. I can tell you that most of the time when I was accruing comp time, when I chose to take comp time, it was because I had a day off coming up that I wanted to use it for. I had already talked to my supervisor. I knew what day I was taking off. It was already, don't pay me for that today. I don't want to burn my vacation time or personal time. I'll take comp time for today. I'll use it for, in 2 weeks. And it's not creating overtime because it was already a scheduled day. It's just the mechanism to extend the life of my vacation and personal time. It's typically how it was used historically from my stance. So it's no additional cost. The overtime already happened, that cost is already there. I don't know what the note about suggested edits regarding the payout.
So I have a feeling we probably absorbed some edits already in here. since
Yeah, I was
that
gonna say,
comment,
I was
Because I
gonna
don't,
say,
I think some of that got addressed along
Yeah.
the way and incorporated as we've discussed this.
If my recollection is correct, you all were having a conversation about whether or not it could transcend one fiscal year to the next. And I believe I explained at the time that our current practice is to pay out on June
at the- at
30th.
June 30th, yeah,
So it doesn't.
right.
So maybe we don't need it, but in that last paragraph, or that last paragraph on page 14 says within 30 days or by the end of the fiscal year, whichever is sooner. I don't know if we need to call that out because we're not going to let them carry it. If it's 3 days before the end of the fiscal year, we can't say
The
no.
last
I know it does
sentence,
say
the very last sentence of that same,
unused.
unused accrued compensatory time will be paid out on the employee, on the final payroll of the fiscal year, if not used within the fiscal year. So it's in there already.
And we think that's sufficient to say it doesn't matter how long. If you haven't had your 30 days, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Okay.
So unused will be paid at 30 days or the end of the fiscal year, whichever comes first.
Correct.
The
Yes.
way, what we
With-
have.
Right,
Unless
unless the supervisor
other-
has put in writing an extension. But the supervisor
Right.
can't transcend fiscal years.
They can extend the 30 days.
And do we want that to be supervisors, department heads, or appointing authority only, or do we not? Concerned about that? What was that question?
Right now, we have it listed as,
Supervisor. It really should be department head.
gonna
At the
say
very
that-
least, there should be department head and/or appointing authority. Or do we want that to be the appointing authority? We're not creating additional liability because we're
No.
restricting it, so I'm not super concerned about it.
no, I
But
don't
would
think
change it
it
from
needs,
supervisor to department head.
sure,
To department head.
which most of the time is the supervisor. For
Well,
most,
we have
yeah, we
more
do
and
have
more
layered,
now,
we're
so-
getting more layers, but
In
yes.
some cases, no. So to keep consistency across the
Department head.
departments, it stops at the department head.
Sure,
So it can only be extended by the department head.
yes,
In writing by the department head and/or appointing authority. So we'll modify those.
instead of supervisor.
And then I know it's nitpicking, but up above in the first paragraph, only upon a mutual agreement of both the employee and the appointing authority or the employee's department head, I would rather flip that. It's really between the employee and the department head and/or the appointing authority. Like, there's not a need, that shouldn't be the first.
Right.
It just indicated, like, if I read that, I'm going to go, oh, I got to talk to the appointing authority first? Maybe I can talk to the department head. I just want to flip it because it really should be department head first.
Yes.
It's really who you're going to.
I think that would line with chain of command, too.
Right. Right.
I
It's
can make that.
just
No,
It's
it's a
an
good
easy
point.
edit.
semantics to some degree, but
No, yeah,
consistency.
we're striving for, right?
We're trying.
I'm just scrolling down through to see if there was any other red line changes. We made some changes on the bereavement leave.
Which we've already adopted, didn't we? Or did we just take the same action for? Oh, no, we didn't. No, maybe you're right. We didn't. I'm
I
thinking
think you
of,
reviewed
Yeah.
Thinking
it
of
and said
holidays.
you wanted to wait till Selectman Bastrash was back.
Yeah.
It's true.
Yeah, so the additional was trying to capture our
That one is
non-standard,
So-
non-8-hour employees,
Right.
part-timers. There's consecutive days, but if we only had it as 40 hours, somebody working 4-hour shifts now gets 10 shifts. This
Right.
captures it down to the intent, which is 5 days.
Right.
I'm happy
Or a
with that.
max of 40 hours.
Or a max of 40 hours, and it's a combination of.
Right.
do 40 hours or 5 days.
So
Five,
this,
5 consecutive shifts that doesn't exceed, yeah, okay. So if you work 10s, it's only 4. If you work something less than 8, it's just 5.
correct. Up to the max benefit that you would have been awarded. There's a line about
still a-
proration for
There's
Right.
still a proration, so,
Right.
yeah.
Yep.
If you're a 30-hour-a-week regularly scheduled employee, you have a prorated benefit.
You get to 30 hours or
Right.
5 days, adding up to 30 or less, whichever
Right.
came first.
Right. Yep.
1 day, and the 1 day is 1 day,
Correct.
period. Not prorated, and,
It's 1 day based on that employee's regular schedule.
regular hours for
Right.
that day, yeah. Not prorated for that,
Correct.
at that point, necessarily.
Right. Did that capture what you all were hoping to accomplish?
Yes.
Okay. I know you spent a lot of time on it.
Long time getting there, but I think it gets it now.
And then the last one, and the last one was an error that I made.
Correct.
Under parental leave,
Yeah.
we had made the revisions with council feedback in December, and when I represented it to you all in the beginning of January, somehow that revision did not carry. And so I have inserted,
This is
the track change version.
and that came from council.
This is council's language.
Yeah.
Correct. And this aligns with both federal and state statutes.
Okay. And that's the intent language that we were missing and
Yes.
got back in?
Yep.
That fell off. Okay.
I don't have any concerns with the way it's written.
I'm just rereading the FMLA, but I think it's fine. Do we, under the FMLA, do we need the unlike language in that line? Is that the recommended language?
Let me scroll back.
I did read that and went, I don't really
That's like
it.
such double negative. How can we make
Yeah.
it more complicated?
As
than
well, unlike the-
straightforward? As well, unlike, wait, what? Can we just drop like as well to months and just say to be eligible for leave under FMLA? You just have to do this.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know if we need that
I-
as well, unlike, it just feels really messy and like you kind of get lost in what that is trying to say, for me.
I think we can reword it. I think what council was trying to achieve is that there's this particular area of leave is complex because there's federal and state laws at work here, and they have some
Two
overlapping
different-
aspects, they have some differences, and the leave that you structure has to satisfy both. And so it's trying to acknowledge those nuances, but you're right, that's probably clunkier language. We could work at rewording some of that to make it a little clearer. I'd be a little cautious about removing it and inadvertently overlooking something.
I guess the beginning of the FMLA section under parental leave talks about like if you are exercising parental leave, even if you're not eligible for FMLA or have exhausted it, that's fine. However, on the flip side, if you're eligible for both, if you're eligible for FMLA, they'll run concurrently. And then I think the third one is
To be
if you're
eligible.
not eligible for Mass Parental Leave Act, which only applies to full-time, period, FMLA employees are allowed to, are allowed this with these hours and this much employment.
Yeah, so it's an employee eligibility, but specific to FMLA in
Right,
the last
when it's
paragraph.
not parental leave.
When
for the
it's not
state.
parental leave for the state.
And so maybe it's just kind of reorganizing that a little bit, like you said, because in the beginning it's like, if you take under FMLA, you take parental leave, but can't take FMLA, that's okay. You can take FMLA, they'll run concurrently. And then if you can't take parental leave, FMLA does still have eligibility with this criteria.
Okay.
I'm okay
So
adopting
it's
as.
taking that last paragraph that doesn't have another notation and creating the employee eligibility for FMLA? Is that what you want to give it a title?
No, I mean, I looked at the FMLA paragraph that's not highlighted, the one above it,
Yep,
and it really is two different eligibility criteria is called out in there.
correct.
For
One for,
FMLA, like it's a parental leave without FMLA.
and parental
Then
leave
it's
with.
FMLA and parental leave or run concurrent. And then the third one, to me, is the red one, which is not eligible for parental leave. There is still FMLA eligibility without parental leave.
And these, okay.
And so I think it's just the wording, I think, just reorganizing it.
Okay.
And maybe it's, just something like, those ineligible for mass parental leave, which only applies to full-time employees who've been, employed for at least
3 months.
3 months,
Consecutive months.
Are eligible.
are eligible for FMLA for birth and care of. It's almost taking that as well and putting it up in the beginning, and then having that first sentence be the second half of it, right? So at least 3 months may take FMLA leave for birth and care of a newborn child or for placement with the employee of a child for adoption or foster care, period. To be eligible for this leave, an employee must have been employed, blah, blah, blah. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Should I try to rewrite it?
Are you making edits to it right now? Or are
I'm
you just
making
taking
notes.
notes?
Yeah.
Making notes? Okay.
Just wondering if we want to read back some
Something
Some
permanent,
actual
or
language
do you wanna
permanent and
just
give
see
him
it at
some
the beginning of our
language.
next meeting and then be done with it, or I know you were talking about wanting to get.
I was
it done,
hoping to
so
vote it in tonight.
I'm fine.
That's the,
saying
I
rewrite it
scrolled
if you
through and
want.
there's
Is that the
literally
last one?
nothing else. Yeah, that's the last piece.
I can rewrite it right now if you want, because I was the one proposing it. Let me go back and grab it and rewrite it here. A second. Past that page, there we go.
I was going to do the same thing and put it in Word, but you're doing it.
Yeah. I was. My copy paste is not behaving, but I'll just type it out quick. Sorry.
While he's typing that,
Mm-hmm.
joint meeting, February 12th.
Correct.
And
Education presentations. Is this location still satisfactory?
I think we used it last time for all of the education. It worked fine.
Okay.
And I'm assuming the two of you will do the same thing and give each school an allotted time.
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah, we'll come up with a.
And if Mr. Martin is
Schedule.
watching this, nothing personal, we love to hear you, but
Been doing it with everybody.
we're going to have an allotted time.
The tech school has 2 presentations that night. They have to be in Sunderland and here, so.
I'm sure they'll welcome
Yes.
a time-stamped
That'll be found priority.
limit of what they can give us.
Yes.
I would imagine inherently those are a little more complex with what they like to share, so
Yes.
probably a little bit longer than the 5 minutes or 10 minutes.
Right.
I think, not that I have anything to compare it to other than sitting in the galley, but I think this format has worked well. Gives an appropriate amount of time without dragging things out. Good.
Sorry, my-
Department heads have been very organized and articulate in their presentation, so.
Agreed.
We're just trying to fill the dead space while he types.
I'm good. No, I'm good if you guys are. So the amendment to the, replacing the second paragraph under parental leave FMLA is, or my recommended language is, Massachusetts Parental Leave Act, MGL, Chapter 149, Section 105D, only applies to full-time employees who have been employed by the town for at least 3 consecutive months. However, employees may take FMLA leave for the birth and care of their newborn child or for placement with the employee of a child for adoption or foster care, period. To be eligible for leave under the FMLA, an employee must have been employed by the town for at least 12 months and must have worked at least 1,250 hours over the past 12 months, period.
So you didn't change any of the content, you just changed the
No,
format.
I just kind of
You
flipped it around a little. I
flipped it
think I
around.
took as well,
Yeah.
unlike the out. That's
And
about
then-
it.
and reformatted
and
what comes
Please
first.
note that under, and
Yes.
that's it.
Okay,
Really. I just
yeah, I
reorganized
followed
it to
along
be a
and
little
I saw
more-
your changes.
that
I don't
work?
have any concerns with
Okay.
that.
I'll send you that, Brian, if you want, rewritten, so it's,
Perfect.
okay.
And it's already succinct, and if we make a motion tonight, then we know the language we're
We know what the
voting.
amendment was.
Yes.
Yep,
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you for doing that.
of course.
Are there any other changes to this document? I mean, we've only had it on the docket now for, what, 2.5 years?
Has it been that short?
Yeah. I'm just scrolling through one more time to make sure there was no, other than the small changes, like I think, Jim, you had mentioned, consistency of, call it a manual when it's a manual. And,
Right.
you made those
Yep.
editorial, but I don't see any other of substance.
Beth's noted that there's a typo on page 14. Compensatory time must be used with 30 days, and it should be within 30 days. So we'll make
Thank
that
you.
change.
It's amazing how many times we can read that and still gloss right over it. If we're going to make a motion on this tonight, do you happen to know what number you would like to give it for ADM?
Oh, wow.
I can go to the town website and see what we have available.
I would have to go there because I think a year ago, yes, I think I did. And now that you've asked me, I cannot recall what I had been saving for it.
Yeah, where we're at with that.
I think I was intending. I think I was intending 140. Because after that, everything has to do with leave or compensation.
Yeah, which is all sort of embedded in, or
Right.
tangential to, yeah.
Right.
Yeah, and that still leaves a gap
Mhm.
between 130 and yeah,
For future policies.
I don't have any problem with that.
It's fine with me.
140.
Good number.
Chapter 140, wait, what?
Last chance for any amendments before I make a motion. Make a motion that we adopt the Personnel Policies and Procedures Manual It'll be policy ADM-140 with an issue and effective date of February 5th, 2024.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you all.
Thank you. You and the treasurer and council and every other person that weighed in on this
Sure.
All the staff
You too,
55
Scott.
different times, all the,
all the reviews from staff members, it was a lot.
yes,
Former Selectman Bedbury.
yes,
Yes,
lots.
yes.
Okay.
Well, I think you did a lot of offline work too to help support that, which I appreciate. Getting us this thorough draft, which is, well, adopted now policy, which is much more detailed than our prior one.
Yes.
Very much so.
Excellent.
You guys
Anything
already
else?
talked about next meeting,
No? Oh, yes, yes, we did.
okay, and we'll meet on the layout if it makes sense. I'll put it on before.
Based on their response.
And
Yep,
if not, we'll,
just engage.
okay, then if there's no other business, I think we are good.
Make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Everyone, have a good night.